Everyone knows Metal Gear Solid. For years, this series has practically defined the 3D stealth genre of gaming, but it's time to forget everything you knew about Metal Gear Solid. Leave behind the stealth of Solid Snake and experience the next chapter in this iconic series. Welcome to another Thunderous review. My name is Victor, and this is Metal Gear Rising. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Today I'll take a stab at the latest installment of the Metal Gear series. For those of you who may not know, this game was originally being developed by Kojima Productions under the name Metal Gear Solid Rising. The original story was meant to explain the events of Raiden's life preceding the events of Metal Gear Solid 4. After development of the game proved to be too much for Kojima, they handed it over to Platinum Games, the famous developers of such games as Mad World and Bayonetta. Platinum Games agreed to take on the project and immediately began an overhaul on the entire thing. During production, the game's name changed to Metal Gear Rising Revengeance to differentiate it from the Metal Gear Solid series and to emphasize the theme of revenge in the game's storyline. But more to the point, what do I think of this game? Personally, I think this game is absolutely spectacular. This game combines fast-paced hack-and-slash action with a killer soundtrack and a decent story as well. But I've got more than that to talk about, so let's get on with the show. You guys know the rules. I'll split this review into 5 segments: story, gameplay, sound, visuals, and replayability. Let's get to it! That's right, story time, guys. Admittedly, the spoilers are pretty mild, so it's not really a big deal. After Platinum's overhaul, the story was completely revamped along with the rest of the game. The game begins around 4 years after the events of Metal Gear Solid 4, and Raiden has become an employee of a private military company known as Maverick, who has just helped to re-establish peace in a foreign nation. Just as the Prime Minister is congratulating Raiden for his help, their convoy is attacked by an unknown band of cyborg mercenaries. The Prime Minister is kidnapped, and Raiden takes off in hot pursuit. After battling his way through a Metal Gear ray and several more cyborg soldiers, Raiden catches up with the Prime Minister's captors, but is unable to save the Prime Minister. Raiden attacks the mercenaries in a fit of rage, but is cut down. Raiden is left broken and bloody, and narrowly escapes death due to Maverick's timely intervention. Weeks later, Raiden once again pursues the mercenaries, equipped with an upgraded robotic body and a thirst for revenge. That's as far as I'll go here, and I'm sorry to say that there's actually not much more to the story from there. It manages to keep things interesting until about Mission 5, but after that the missions are cut criminally short and the story takes a drastic turn, and not necessarily for the better. Nevertheless, it's fun to play through, plus with at least 2 more DLC side stories on the way, it should keep you invested for more than a few hours. Overall, I'd say this story merits about 7 out of 10. And here we've arrived at the best part of this game, the gameplay. Where to begin? The basic gameplay is definitely reminiscent of Bayonetta, but different enough that it feels like its own style. Raiden's mobility is great. Running and jumping work about as well as you'd expect, and the ninja run is extremely useful for closing the distance between you and your enemies, and navigating the harsh terrain, though it does have its hiccups now and then. One of the biggest problems with this mobility is that it can sometimes trip up the camera, obscuring the player's view and making it difficult to fight. But where the controls truly shine is the swordplay. No matter how many times you chop your enemies into mincemeat, the weight of Raiden's attacks is never lessened. Each and every strike feels powerful, making every one of your kills oh so satisfying. On the contrary, parrying can be one of the most frustrating mechanics if you don't master it, especially during later boss fights. Lastly is the Zandatsu technique. With this move, you can simultaneously slice the limbs from your foes and refill your health and energy. Oh yeah, there's also a minor stealth aspect you can take advantage of, but it's not heavily emphasized in-game. Overall, slicing and dicing enemies has rarely felt so satisfying. These traits, along with a slew of cool and interesting bosses, makes this one of the most enjoyable games I've played. It is for these reasons that I have given gameplay a score of 9 out of 10. If gameplay is the best part of this game, then sound most definitely takes second place. And nowhere is this more evident than in the music. If you don't believe me, then just listen for a second. Epic, right? The music enhances the feel of this game tenfold. Don't get me wrong now, the gameplay would still be amazing without it, but with it, it's a whole new level of awesome. These tracks are the perfect match for this style of game. Wait, scratch that. Any action game ever. And that's why music gets a 10 out of 10. Now, where music excelled, voice acting unfortunately does not. It's not bad per se, but it's not excellent either. While most of the characters sound pretty good, others...
I want him dead.
Not so much. The fault truly lies with Raiden himself.
This is your answer?
Quentin Flynn usually does some pretty good work, but here it seems like he just couldn't decide on how to play this part. But most of these problems are kept isolated in the cutscenes. The in-game shouts and phrases actually sound pretty cool. Between these two pieces, I've decided to merit voice acting 6 out of 10. The last part of sound is, of course, sound effects. Everything sounds damn near perfect. You'll never stop loving the sound of swords clashing and cyborgs exploding. Short, sweet, and excellent. Sound effects gets a 9 out of 10. Now let's add up the score for sound. Music, 10. Voice acting, 6. And sound effects, 9. Averaged, these scores combine to give sound an overall score of 8 out of 10. When it comes to visuals, this game takes yet another cake. The graphics are beautiful and the animations look great, especially since the entire game runs at a steady 60 frames per second. Occasionally, however, the game can incur problems, namely with the Zandatsu system. If you try to cut up too many on-screen items at once, the game experiences some noticeable slowdown. But hey, almost nothing is perfect, and with that in mind, I've given visuals a 9 out of 10. Alright guys, last on the list, replayability. I mentioned earlier how the campaign was criminally short. Well, it turns out that's actually a bonus here. Because the story mode is so short, it makes it easier to play through it again and again and again. Add to that the endless fun of hacking enemies to bits and searching out the secrets hidden in the game, as well as the DLC that I mentioned earlier. This is a game that won't get old anytime soon. The only deterrent that I can think of is the burnout of playing the game for too long on higher difficulties. Overall though, this game is, and in my opinion, will always be extremely fun to play. So I give replayability an 8 out of 10. That about wraps it up, guys, but let's get a final count. Story, 7. Gameplay, 9. Sound, 8. Visuals, 9. And replayability, 8. Add them up and average them out, and the final score for Metal Gear Rising Revengeance comes out to an 8 out of 10. Well, that about does it for this one. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like or subscribe. I'm Victor, and that concludes this Thunderous review. See you next time.